You don't have to be a millennial to be socially savvy. We believe anyone can join Generation Social Media, and your journey starts now. This is the Generation Social Media Podcast by Chatterkick. Today we're answering a question submitted by one of our fans, friends, or family members.
But not my mom.
But not Beth's mom. That'll be the next episode. So the question that we're going to talk about today is, how do I get my employees to engage with us on social media? So Beth, you've been talking a lot about employee advocacy. Tell us a little bit about what that means to a business, and then jump into how to get employees engaged.
So I think employee advocacy is really what most businesses should be thinking about in terms of influencer marketing. You know, everybody talks about influencer marketing and how amazing and how much of a solution it is. And I think it's an awesome opportunity for a lot of brands. But if you are in a space where you're not even quite there yet, for example, maybe you don't have a good social community built up, or maybe you're just still trying to figure out your brand's purpose or attraction level, and the first step with that, especially if you're a B2B or you're not in a space where influencer marketing is really prevalent, start with your employees. They should be your biggest advocates. And it's kind of amazing thing that happens when you give the power to your employees instead of trying to, damper their social media efforts, is if they really believe in what you are doing, which let's hope so if they're working at your company, they can be the best advocates for your business and really take the message that you're trying to send and amplify it times 100. It's amazing what happens when you give that opportunity to those people that are in your business every day. And let's be honest, your customers are interacting with your employees probably just as much as they're interacting with you.
Totally. So I have some statistics and numbers for you. I think some of these are quite astounding. So Hinge Research Institute did a survey of 588 different participants. And so they asked questions about employee advocacy, what the results are, who's using them, who's not. This was some of the findings. So businesses with employee advocacy grow faster and see more benefits than those without them. Nearly 31% of high growth firms have a formal employee advocacy program, more than double than the average of all other firms. Super interesting.
Yeah, and I think when we first started the conversation with social media with businesses and brands, I remember businesses telling us the only people on my Facebook page are my employees anyways, or it's just the people who work here. And I think that's funny now after, 6-7 years of doing this, those conversations are definitely changing to say, oh, maybe that's what this is really for. And maybe that's the strategy that makes the most sense and is probably the most approachable for a lot of businesses. Marketing, selling, building funnels, building communities, building just the tribe around brands that's hard. And it's way easier just to say, let's use these platforms and get our employees excited, connected. And what's better than just putting them on a pedestal and showcasing and giving them some attention? Gone are the days of the picture in the break room. People want their picture across the social channels to show that they have recognition and that they've made accomplishments in their career.
I love that you brought up kind of the funnels and the sales part of this, because this is really both employee engagement recognition, but it also is a brand play. One of the other statistics from the study was that 64% of the advocates in the formal program credited the employee advocacy to attracting and developing new business, and nearly 45% attribute new revenue streams to employee advocacy. You also kind of talked about just employee engagement overall. Almost 86% of advocates in a formal program said their involvement in social media had a positive impact on their career.
Yeah, I think that's something that's it's obvious if you really think about it, right? You give your employees that opportunity to showcase who you are and to get out there and really to build networks and relationships. Guess what? That works. It's sales. It's those relationships develop on social channels, and it's a pretty proven method. And so it works really well. And I think that brands and businesses really need to take note of that and stop worrying about it isn't going to work and just start trying it.
I was kind of thinking about this as we were getting ready to do the podcast today. This was 2013, 2014. It wasn't a formal advocacy program, but we were helping launch a new brand in New York. And part of getting that's a really noisy space for social, but part of launching that brand, we created this email that we sent out every week to the employees and the team members to go and like specific posts and say certain things on the platform. And while the goal of that was more of a brand play, it really got the team member more engaged in what we were doing on social. And so we instantly had more likes and shares than we would have had if we would have just kind of been operating on our own, posting all this social media engagement. So that was a really long time ago. But tell me a little bit more about an advocacy program that we're trying or we're helping organizations with. What does it look like?
So I think there's a couple of different options. The first, let's start with the most simple, like the obvious and easiest for businesses, which is just connect your employees with your social accounts. Make sure they have the right names, the right handle. And when I say do it, just have everybody do it together in a team meeting.
Yeah.
We were working with one business and they wanted to grow their audience on Facebook. And so they just, at one of their team meetings, just all pulled up their phone and asked their friends, businesses, and connections that they had on their personal account to like their business page. And they got like 100 fans in 10 minutes.
Works.
It
Instant
works.
growth.
And I think you can do the exact same thing with your employees. And a lot of times it's not the fact that your employees don't want to. It's either they liked it a long time ago, so they haven't interacted with you recently. So tell them to like, share, comment. Get some activity on those posts. That'll help it reappear in their news feed. And then you can also have them mark the see first option so that they can see your page's content higher than maybe it getting lost in the news feed. And those are just really basic. And starting with Facebook, if that's your primary social platform, LinkedIn, make sure you're connected with your employees on LinkedIn, just as a basic
person.
As a person, and you can share each other's content, have your blog posts, or, I don't know if businesses are still doing internal newsletters. I think there is still a lot of them, but those should be living online so that your employees can share what's happening in your organization. What are you doing? The first step is just connect.
Yeah, I love that. I think the amount of effort that goes into creating content for a newsletter, that's like 50 different social media posts. And people want to be recognized. They want to feel good. And the best way to create a community right now is on social. Tell me a little bit about gamification. You kind of went through a pretty basic strategy on employee advocacy. Right now we're working on kind of a gamification model for one of our clients. Tell me a little bit more about how that works.
Well, I think the thing that you have to think about with these employee advocacy programs is you have to be consistent and you have to mix it up. Otherwise, and you have to kind of make it fun. I mean, nobody wants to be forced to do anything, right? And so one of the ideas that we had, and we've taken this model to a couple of different businesses, is let's make it a challenge, make it a game. And so it was kind of an opportunity for this business. They have a lot of male men that work there, anywhere from 22 to probably, on up. And they, that demographic, if you look at 22 to let's say 65, they're on a lot of different platforms and they're using the platforms very differently. And this business didn't have all the platforms necessarily as business accounts. So what we did was we helped and we did one-to-one. We went through and we asked the employees, do you understand how this works? And do you want to participate? It was not mandatory. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be exciting. And then
we had a full kickoff. It was really, It was off site. So it was at a bar. Everybody was really kind of had their guards down a little bit. We really laid the blueprint for what the opportunity was. And like you said before, not forcing people to join, because if you do, that will backfire. And really kind of telling them how to get involved and then ultimately how this benefits both them and the business.
Yep. And one thing we learned about that, especially because this podcast is about like breaking social stereotypes in some regards, is most of the people were connected on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And we thought, especially because they had such a young employee base, that a lot of those would be gravitating on Instagram. And they did have a mix, but it was interesting to see that they still had a lot of the young men in their organization. Facebook was their platform of choice and the one that they were the most comfortable with. And so then what we did is we basically said, okay, we're going to set up a point system and we're going to track it. Every time you interact with the brand and the business, you get a point. Every time you create new content on behalf of the business that shows our purpose, our mission, a day in the life, we kind of gave them guardrails to say, make sure that there's no customer information in the background. Like, don't look like you're goofing off. Like, that's not what we're trying to get across here. But really help them be part of the larger picture. And then they got like 5 points if they did that. And this is where you start to see real ROI, because not only are you getting great employee engagement, but if you can create content at scale, videos, photos, day in the life, they're on job sites all over the region, you're now saving drastic amounts of dollars, because every piece of content, even though it may just be a photo, to have someone else do that, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of expense and it's a lot of coordination. And every time you take that one photo and move it across 4 people's desk, that adds cost to your business. And so it's been a really great opportunity. And I don't know if it'll be an ongoing thing for the rest of time, but at least it gets those businesses, those employees really excited, and they understand it. And it's something that you could turn on when you want, and you can, take a break from it when you want.
I think that's such a powerful brand move. We're trying to help businesses all the time tell their most authentic story online. There's nothing more authentic than creating and capturing content while you're working, where you're working at. And I think one of the best benefits of this from a brand perspective is really engaging employees on the job and capturing that live in the moment content that then they're posting and being an advocate on your behalf, but you can also use on your brand page. And that, I think, is the most powerful way to tell your story, is through their eyes and their perspective. But also, anytime, when we see this all the time on all of the brands that we manage, anytime you post a picture of somebody's face,
right,
or you get
faces
people,
always work.
Yeah, faces, smiling, boomerangs, all of that. Any of our posts with our employees in them versus any of our blog posts or anything like that, they are always the ones that are the top performers. People want to see their friends. They want to see themselves. Right. They want to see their own recognition on those pages. But then their families get involved.
Right.
Every time we post a picture of you, our page just goes crazy. We post a picture of...
I just have a lot of family.
Yeah, somebody had just had a baby. When we post a picture of their family and the baby, people just really want to see the people behind the business. And that's what a brand is. And that's the difference between posting your logo and posting the people.
Right. And I think, from a leader perspective, and really, as an owner of this company, we do a lot of this ourselves. And although we don't have a formal game like we were talking about, I think it's so exciting to me to be able to showcase my employees, because I built this business not just because I wanted to do something. I built this to be the collective of all of our efforts. And so it's a really great thing to see your employees get recognition and excitement, and honestly really like what they do. That's what you're trying to do every day. So
our people are definitely the DNA, and when you scroll through any of our platforms, you see them everywhere. Some more than most, because like our business, like most businesses, not everybody loves being on camera, but we try to get everybody engaged as much as possible. So you kind of talked about the program a little bit. What did they use as a reward? How did they really get people in to this game? What was the buy-in?
So there was an incentive. It was a significant dollar value. I think you need to have something that's more than like a $10 gift or a hat or something. Although people will do a lot for a t-shirt. Do not exclude that. But I think that we ran it for, a select period of time, so it wasn't forever. I was talking to another business that did something similar, and she said it worked really well. They had different teams. So 3 different teams created a piece of content. It was actually a video that they posted on their Instagram account, and she said it worked amazing. They were really excited with it. I think they did a prize at the end. But the problem they had is then it just ended.
It fizzled out.
They didn't have any plan to do what to do with it next. And I think that's what you really need to think about when you're launching an effort like this, is who's going to own this program? And it doesn't have to be something that is never ending, but it does need to have some defined goals, outcomes, timeframes, because otherwise it'll just be another project that's great, yay, everything worked, and then guess what? Your Facebook page doesn't stop. So your Facebook page is always there, and then all of a sudden everybody kind of fizzles out.
Who do you think should own an employee advocacy program? Like, who really should be involved, in your opinion?
Well, I think the ownership or the owner or the leadership needs to have a direct hand. They may not need to be the owners of it, but whoever is in charge.
Buy-in.
Yes, they need buy-in. And they really should be handling a lot of the culture and employee engagement. Like, that's a pretty standard role of leadership. So they need to have some sort of connection. They need to believe that this is going to work and help. I think the worst place for social media or any sort of a plan in social to belong is with somebody that hates it. Like, personally hates social, professionally does not believe in it. And there's still a lot of people out there. I hear that all the time, like, oh, I hate Facebook. It's so annoying. I'm like, well, don't do it, and don't be in charge of it for your business. So, because it's never going to work if you despise it.
I never really thought of that, but that is like probably the most truest basic tip that you should follow on whoever owns any of your social assets. You talked a little bit about tracking. So there are a couple different ways to track. I know there are tools like Bonusly, Tap My Back, You Earned It. Those are some fancy tools.
Those are some cool software platforms out there.
Really cool ways to navigate kind of the gamification. It makes it really fun. If you have people who are willing to engage in some sort of tech way, because these are all apps and websites, and some, if you haven't, I don't know, people in your business who aren't like, just don't want to get on email, or they're still a fan of doing paperwork, maybe not these apps. But what are some other ways without getting these specific bonus apps that you can track an employee advocacy program?
I mean, the most basic way, and this is kind of a pain, is just counting. Like, if you don't have it's free. If you don't have a lot of employees at your organization, I would start just looking. And if you don't want to have hard metrics, then you don't have to put in the hard work. So you can just start with, hey, looking at your post, does your employees look like they're engaging? Are you seeing the people that like and share your comment or your post? Is that your people that work there? Like, that's a great anecdotal instance. But if you really want to see metrics, then just literally count and see how many of your 10 people that like the post, what's the ratio of your employees? And you can do that on a micro level per post, or you can do it on a macro level per month, per year. There's lots of software that can help you with that. We use our social media management software a lot, that every time we're responding to messages or comments or putting posts out, we look to see is there employees that are engaging at that business. And this is a really good tracking mechanism, because it kind of does the counting and tracking for you.
And results.
For you. And it can spit out a report at the end of the month to see how many employees, or at least when we're doing it on behalf of the business, we don't always know every single person that works there, but there's sometimes language in their comments like our or we, that you can kind of make those assumptions. And if you have 1,000 to 5,000 people in your company, you could do the same thing without knowing every single person.
I think the employee advocacy programs are just super interesting for a lot of reasons that we've been talking about, with team engagement or social media engagement and content. But let's talk a little bit about why people are afraid of doing them. I mean, people are afraid of their employees talking crap about them online. These advocacy programs can really change the discussion and the topics.
Yeah, I think first of all, you need to take a hard look at your business and your culture. If you have a culture that is maybe not in a great place right now, or you have negative reviews on Glassdoor, Indeed, and you're just really struggling from a culture perspective, you may not want to just hand someone a microphone tomorrow, right? You need to start shifting the dialogue in general. You need to get buy-in. You need to get your employees ready to fight for you and rally for you. And that could take a couple weeks. That could take a year. And so you really need to kind of give yourself a hard look in the mirror and say, where are we at right now? And then from there, decide how you can scale that. If you have a pretty great, most businesses have, I would say, at least a mediocre to a pretty good work environment. And if you're at that point, then that's a good time to think about, okay, how can we use this for retention? How can we use this for recognition? And just start slow. Just like we said, start simple, connect with people. A Facebook group is a really great tool to use. Just put all your employees in a Facebook group. It kind of gives you that quieter environment, a little bit more intimate, that you can have those conversations, see how it goes, and then expand it out.
Love it.
The one thing I think businesses forget about is just because you don't have a formal program doesn't mean people aren't talking about their workplace. So right now it's already happening. This just allows you to kind of put your arms around it a little bit and say, okay, we're going to now try to take a little bit of authority and authenticity to it.
And amplify the positive. I mean, again, like it's just that authentic story.